Hi Vikas, welcome to our channel Laws and Lacunas. I want to have your opinion as an individual, intellectual individual on certain things, right? So number one, I want to ask with that, what do you think Supreme Court has failed in its duty to uphold the constitutional principles? Do you think that it is so? That really Supreme Court has failed in upholding its constitutional duties?
Well, first of all, we both are lawyers. We are a part of this institution, practicing lawyers, and we can always, criticize the system. And whatever I'm going to say, I don't want to demean the judicial system or the judiciary or the Supreme Court, but I have my own opinion, and I have the right to differ on certain aspects. When the Constitution was enacted by the framers of the Constitution, the Supreme Court has been given the duty of being the guardian of the Constitution. Any person can approach the Supreme Court to the top of the top level under Article 32 if there is an infringement of fundamental rights. And whenever there was a need in the society, if we go through the historical principles, we go through the facts and the situation which was historically present, we see Supreme Court has time and again came forward, upheld the fundamental rights of certain people, especially in Keshwanand Bharati's case, when the Supreme Court invented the theory of basic structure, just to safeguard the core principles of the Constitution, that it should not be amended. In Puttaswamy's case, Supreme Court again said that the privacy is a fundamental right. You cannot infringe upon somebody's privacy. In Vishakha versus State of Rajasthan, Supreme Court laid down the principles of the POSH Act. So, being the guardian, Supreme Court gets the powers from the Constitution itself. The Constitution, which was enacted by the citizens of India, which was drafted by the citizens of India, which after enactment was given to the citizens of India by the citizens of India. And this is the Constitution of the citizens of India itself. It gives the power as well as the authority to the Supreme Court. The entire existence of the Supreme Court is because of the Constitution of the people of India. Supreme Court has even a duty, and not just the duty but an obligation to safeguard the fundamental rights of the people, especially in the circumstances which warrants them. But at the same time, I also believe that the principle of justice at the doorstep. But what I have seen during past few years, Supreme Court can do much, much better. It is not just about the highlighted case, the cases which involve the media attention. Supreme Court can do a lots and lots for achieving gender equality in the society, to actually make the justice reach at the doorstep. Although we have the principle of the public interest litigation, but at the same time, a poor person, when he reaches Supreme Court, he finds the entire system as alienated or alien as it can be. For a common citizen of India, the entire system of Supreme Court, the atmosphere, the environment, the language which is being used to deliver judgments, although nowadays we see lots and lots of judgments are being translated into the regional language, but the English is being used. And when a common person reaches there, he finds it too difficult to adjust to that environment.
But it is not the problem of Supreme Court. If somebody is not well versed with the language, which is a kind of a most spoken language in the entire world, specifically when now education is not that costly affair in India.
Please try to understand. All right, let me just complete the previous one. So the first thing is the Supreme Court can do much better for achieving true gender equality in the country. Because any law which infringes upon certain parts of the people, certain chunk of people, the Supreme Court can always take certain steps, can always lay down law. All right, this is first. Second, I have seen is Supreme Court tries and had interfered with the religious activity of a particular religion. So religious equality can also be brought by one judgment at a time. As far as this English is concerned, we need to understand that India is a multicultural, multilinguistic society, and the Supreme Court's bench is only in Delhi. So if somebody comes from Maharashtra, where the Marathi is the spoken language, somebody comes from Gujarat, somebody comes from Odisha, where the Odia is the language, Malayalam, Telugu, Tamil, and many other languages. Those people, if they are not conversant, especially the poor people, if they are not conversant with the English language, it becomes a difficult affair.
I think
It is twofold.
Approximately in 18 languages, I think that the judgments are available.
It is not about judgment, it is about the procedure, because 99% of the time, whatever goes in the court, whether it is district court, high court or Supreme Court, 99.5% of the time, the procedural aspect is to be followed. So you issued notice, some interlocutory application was filed, you have to hear the arguments on that application, then the application has to be decided. The final outcome in the form of the judgment is being translated.
Right.
Alright. So a person who's sitting next to a lawyer, and the lawyer is, it's like the judge said something, the lawyer said something, and the application is dismissed. I have no idea what happened. This is the perception which is being created in the, before the society at large. And I think Supreme Court should do something about it, and the help of the legislative body would be typically needed in this kind of situation.
I can't say that I totally agree with you on this particular explanation, but I cannot deny it either, right? So this has to be this. We have to find out a way to implement these things because it is definitely a costly affair in terms of money, right?
No, money is not the issue in our country. All right. So if you think, basically, if you think you don't believe, don't agree with me, we can have a discussion on this, because a healthy discussion always brings out the result. It brings out certain ideas to tackle a situation which is there, to tackle a problem which can be resolved.
You said that we can do much more about gender equality or religious kind of equality. So why we have to ask somebody when it is our constitutional right under Article 14 that there has to be equality, and gender discrimination is there. I will not deny onto that. Being a woman myself, I can see that a lot of discrimination is happening. But don't you think that this is a choice?
Choice of whom?
Of everybody, of a particular gender.
Please
and in that, women are equally participants. If I have been already given equal right under Article 14, and then on the other hand, there is a hue and cry that I have not been given equal right. So don't you think that this is bit impartial, or this is a kind of selective equality on which we as human beings are...
First of all, we need to understand the kind of equality we are talking about, the kind of equality which is given under Article 14. That is not the right way of seeing the equality in India. It is not the right way of the implementation of right to equality. Because in India, the concept of all being equal does not exist. Supreme Court itself in many judgments had said it is the equality among equals. So you have to be a part of that group of people to be treated equally in that group only. If you belong to the other part, to belong to a different religious denomination, in that situation your equality will be treated in that religious denomination or the linguistic denomination itself. If we believe, if the constitutional principle of Article 14 is to be implemented in the same spirit as it was intended by the framers of the constitution, then there would be no problem in the entire society. But it is not being implemented in that manner, because there are always exceptions to every right which is given as a fundamental right. For example, right to equality, that means you have to treat all the religion equally. You have to treat all the...
I think let's discuss one point at a time. I just want to discuss that on the gender equality, and I will come on to the religious equality on the second question maybe.
Yes.
So another thing is that let's talk about gender specific laws, because I believe this is again my presumption that we are talking about that.
It is not just about the laws. All right, please, we need to go to the foundation. Laws are made to mold the society, the behavior of the society. All right, it actually governs the behavior. So you make certain laws where you punishes one gender for the same act in the same situation, and you let go the other person just because of the gender in the same situation if the other person also commits the same offense, all right, or the same act. That does not bring gender equality in the society. First. Second, the sensitization of police system. When there are two people of different gender, they file complaints against each other. You register FIR against the men or the one particular so-called dominating gender. But
do you deny that?
What?
Do you deny that? That so-called dominating gender is not the dominating gender?
There have been so many atrocities, so many invasions, especially in the entire country, and because of all these atrocities, we developed a kind of customs in the society, many customs in the society, which are not good for the society itself, not good for Bharat. Just to today say that 5,000 years back or 2,000 years back, your ancestors did something to my ancestors, and that's why today, when we don't have any problem with each other, I need certain extra rights, against you. That I don't think is justified, because I was not a part of those ancestors at that point of time when those so-called atrocities were being committed. You are not a part of that. If you and me are sitting in the same bench, going through the same education system, have the right to apply for the same government job, then, and we have the right to freedom to say whatever we want to say, we have the right to the best of the best employment, or to conduct the business, whatever the business we want, especially the legal ones, then I don't think there should be any special treatment for anybody. It's like you are punishing somebody.
Especially when there is no VIP culture. It is like you believe that the VIP sort of thing has been indirectly imbibed for a particular gender.
Not the VIP culture. VIP culture is something else. All right.
No.
It's not based on
for
gender.
For a figure of speech, I am saying that, okay, if I am a woman, so I have been maybe termed as VIP.
No. It is not being VIP. I believe that once a person say that women needs protection, at the same time we also say that men also need protection, because both are human beings. Both are of different gender. Physically, one may be strong, one is stronger than the other one, but intellectually there is no difference. There are sometimes far better judgments delivered by female judges than the male ones. There are far better policies brought by female politicians than the male ones. There are far more, sometimes better books written by female authors than the male ones. All right. So physically, yes, we do have difference, but treating somebody.
But that is not the cerebral difference, maybe.
There is nothing.
Right. Okay. So coming on to our next question, sub question, I will say on to that. That you also mentioned very rightly that we have to be religion neutral also.
Religious equality must be there.
Yes, right. And especially when the secularism is one of the integral part of basic structure. So you wanted to say something, and what do you think that how, because there is a lot of hue and cry on the recent judgment which was delivered by the constitutional bench on Ayodhya Mandir.
There was Ayodhya, there was Aligarh Muslim University, minority
Yes.
rights and everything. But
And for
we
that,
just-
Supreme Court is being really criticized also. Because all the sectors, all the sects, they have said that because of judges being a person of faith, they have decided the judgment. And when the Aligarh Muslim University this judgment was about to come, and Supreme Court was passed so order, and then again there was hue and cry. Why? Because one judgment was there on Ayodhya Mandir, so now they have restrained themselves from giving another.
We must understand another thing. The basic, again, we need to go to the foundation. Our process, the entire judicial process is adversarial. All right. So two adverse parties fight for adverse rights. One says, I have this right to do certain things. The other person says, the other party comes and says, you don't have that right. It may be one side, the government may be there, the state may be there, or both sides there are private parties. All right. So Supreme Court or any court for that matter has to decide in favor of one party. Either it has to give the judgment in favor of the plaintiff or petitioner, or it has to dismiss the case. If it is dismissed, that means the respondent, the opposing party, says we won. So one or the other group of people will always come forward and criticize the court. Maybe it may be Supreme Court, High Court, or District Court, or Magistrate Court, any court for that matter. So instead of getting into the criticism, what we need to understand is what was the ratio and the reason of that judgment.
Entire world has gone insane.
Anybody can go
because
inside.
of Article 370, and also because of the Ayodhya Mandir and all these things. I don't know what problem the word. Why they, when there is a lot of disturbance, internal disturbance in their own countries, I don't know why all the eagle eyes are there on India.
It's like, every country has got their own problems, all right, but they want to point it out on India that you have some internal problems, you need to focus on that.
Do you think they are scared of India?
Everybody is scared of India. Most of the countries are scared of India. We are among the top 5 economies in the world. Everybody says that we are still a developing nation without giving the definition of a developed nation. And GDP wise, if we talk about GDP wise, and I think we will soon be, among the top 3.
I see ourselves as top 3 only.
We can see as number 1 at any point of time, but that doesn't make any sense, no. We can say we are number 1, but we can be number 1 in certain aspects. But if we take one criteria at a time, GDP wise, for example, then this trillion economy, then we are in top 5 and we will be among the top 3 or top.
Okay, coming back on to our point, do you think that if some international leader, a person of faith, is seen with another intellectual person who's an integral part of judicial system, he is also a person of faith, do you think that it hampers their judgment, or do you think, being a lawyer yourself and a person of faith and at most intellectuality, do you discriminate, or do you think that being a person of faith discriminates your urge to do or fight for a client to get him or her justice?
So please, our legal system does not give any preference to any person, whether he needs to be, a person of faith or an atheist, or he must belong to a certain religion, or he is either religious or spiritual or not. That is not the criteria of becoming a lawyer, becoming a judge, becoming a doctor, or any qualified professional for that matter, or even for the administrative services or police services. You can belong to any religion, you can belong to any faith. You do not want to talk about God, that's okay. You are spiritual, that's okay. You don't, believe in God, that's okay. So that is first aspect. Second, everybody is human being. When you are born in the land of spirituality, one or the other day you will always be spiritual to some extent. And faith, as far as I can understand, everybody has got some faith in something. Even atheists believe that God does not exist. That means he has faith in that belief that it does not exist. But proving something is totally different. Let's not get into the scientific proof and stuff. So first is, being a judge, everybody is human being. The upbringing, the experience, and the family values, the society, everybody has got their own load and own experiences.
Do you think
they to some extent, they have certain biases. They might have certain biases, but that doesn't mean the judgment they give is wrong. Judgment generally is based on the law, the constitutional principles, and that's it.
So do you think, I just want a very specific answer, do you think that being a person of faith or no faith, or whatsoever you rightly said right now, it might cloud the judgment one takes on that particular moment?
It depends upon the context, all right. We can't isolate the human emotions. We can't isolate ourselves from the past experiences and the family values. But most of the time, what I have seen, majority of the times, the judgment delivered by the High Court and the Supreme Court, most of the time, it is not affected by the religion or faith.
But they are being criticized because they believe in certain
Anybody can
things.
criticize anybody. Every person
Fair
is a
enough.
person of faith. All right, and that does not make him a bad person.
Yeah,
Obviously, if you have a certain
everybody
important
is a
decision
person
to make,
of faith, right?
it is but obvious that
If Hindus are people of faith, then Muslims are also people of faith somewhere. I will very...
I'm saying, when you have a difficult decision to make, whether you believe in God or you don't believe in God, you believe in spirituality or you don't, most of the time people always pray to that unknown entity or the universal energy to guide them. Our ancestors did that. We are doing it.
Irrespective
and
of
our next
religion.
generation is also going to do that.
Irrespective of religion.
That's person to person dependency.
Right. Okay, so next I want to ask you that, again, this is kind of a grey area as far as my experience or my understanding is concerned. What do you think about the appointment of judges? Do you think that collegium system is a problem?
Well, this is not transparent per se, that is, I can say. Reason being, judges appointing judges is not found in any of the other countries in the entire world. When you appoint a judge, you say your notice is given that these are the people who are being appointed as judges. But most of the time, how many people that you interviewed? What were the qualification of those people? Why judges appoint the other judges? Do you believe that nobody else can make the best decision apart from you? There are far more learned and experienced lawyers I have seen who have more experience than a sitting Supreme Court judge. They are still practicing in court. There are many members of the bar, and even there can be other, big, politicians, I would say, who have been doing great for the entire society. They can be consulted at least, but you don't consult anybody. I think the transparency should be there, and collegium system itself, just because it is not transparent, it's being done in the name of being in the name of independence of judiciary. But all these people come from the same society, from the same law schools, from the same bar, from the same courts. At least the counterpart should be consulted.
But why is that? Because that we are relying on the judgments of judges, and then when it comes to collegium system, why you think that this is a grey area?
This is not a grey area. We don't have any option. Do you have any other option? No, we don't have any other option.
But I do have my faith, and again, I do believe in them.
Faith does not enforce your right. Please as a common citizen, if you are standing on a road and somebody misbehaves with you, then you go to the police. Police says we don't do anything. We are not going to do anything. People go to the court when they don't have any other option. That is the last option, and that again comes to the the question of faith. We still have faith in the institution, and that's why we go to the court. If we don't go to the court, there is no other place where a person could go and make a hue and cry or request that person to that institution to uphold their rights.
So do you think that there is a societal biasness when collegium system comes in play, that they prefer, or some kind of discrimination or some kind of
it is not transparent, so I can't say much about it. Either you make it completely transparent, tell all the people these are the candidates we believe should be the judges, and these are the people we have interviewed. This was the criteria of that interview, all right, and this is the descending list of the people who in our opinion got this kind of marks. At least there should be something. So if there is none, we can't say much about it.
Okay, coming on to the next. This question I have already asked, but again I will ask you again in individual context, that how do you decide per se that this is the case I want to fight and this is the case I don't want to fight? Does your religious belief hampers it, or does it allows you to take some kind of decision, or you are totally...
So the question I am able to understand is, does my religious beliefs make me help me decide whether I am supposed to take this case or not?
Right.
It doesn't. My religious beliefs have nothing to do with the duty that I have to perform in court. My religious beliefs do not dictate which cases I am supposed to take and which I am not supposed to take. And so goes with most of the lawyers.
Yeah, I hope so. Okay, so my another question to you is, if a judge is close to a political leader, or if as a matter of fact you are close to a political leader, do you think that it hampers his credibility?
I don't think that hampers anybody's credibility. When you are holding a constitutional post, you are a judge of a high court or a supreme court, obviously you will have to interact with the top officials or the head of the other constitutional posts. It may be prime minister, it may be the chief minister, it may be the governor, it may be anybody else, all right, the chairman of the UPSC or election commission, or anybody. So it is a part of your job to meet all those people. Sometimes you develop certain friendship, sometimes you do not. But I don't think, to some extent, it might place some human bias towards a particular person. But I don't think that should have anything to do with the decision making or the judgment delivery, which must not hamper that. There might be bad apples in the society. There might be bad apples in the judicial system as well. I think there can be, all right. And there are always bad apples in the politics also. So, so unless there is that specific issue in the court and the judgment is totally based on that bias, I don't think it matters that much. Reason being, we have a hierarchy of courts. So if a high court judge is close to some other chief minister, and he, let's say hypothetically, he decides in the favor of that state or the chief minister, then people can always go to Supreme Court, and many a times the superior court have taken a step forward. They have reversed the judgment passed by the high court or the lower courts.
Okay, one last question. Do you think the Supreme Court stand up to the power of the executive and political leaders?
It is not the basically duty of the Supreme Court to stand up against anybody. We have a constitutional mandate. We have the separation of powers, legislative, executive, as well as the judiciary. All three makes a integral part of the Constitution itself. They derive their power from the Constitution. So the duty of the Supreme Court is to say that fundamental rights of the citizens are not being violated. The judgments passed by the lower courts must be as per law. Whether it is in favor of the state or in favor of an individual, it doesn't matter. At the same time, Supreme Court has got the advisory jurisdiction to advise the President of India. The interstate disputes are to be resolved by Supreme Court only, adjudicated by Supreme Court only. So it is nowhere given that Supreme Court has to stand up against anybody. If in appropriate cases a single person commits murder, and based on the evidence and everything, the Supreme Court can be said to be standing against that person who has committed that heinous offence. If somebody commits a terrorist act, Supreme Court can be said to have delivered a good judgment if he punishes that person. If the government does something wrong, the Supreme Court can also make that decision of the government or the legislative body as void as null and void as it can be. But that does not mean Supreme Court has to stand up against anybody. It is not in the domain of the Supreme Court. It has to adjudicate. Supreme Court is not a social servant.
Right.
Alright. Supreme Court is an adjudicating authority.
Perfect. So, given our conversation, I just want to understand that although there is no particular reason, that they always say that people who don't have better arguments always shout, right? So why is that international media is creating a lot of noise for a particular they say that the ruling party or whatever they are, I think everybody can see visibly that what all statements they are giving in especially New York Times or newspapers like this. So why don't you think, are they scared or what? There is a lot of funding coming their way, or because they are being asked to give these kind of statements. So why they want to create the internal disturbance when their countries are already going through a lot?
This is not new, all right. We have the longest history in religiously and civilization wise. So when English people came, they said that you are not good enough to have your own government. You are not good enough to govern your people. We got independent. We have done good job, really good job since we got independent in 1947. And before we could achieve like 100 years of independence, we are already among top 5. We have the cheapest and the best medical services in the world. India is a hub for medical tourism. Education wise, we have adopted the Western culture. It needs lots and lots of improvement, but still on the other aspects, we are one of the largest consumers as well as largest producers in the world. We are not dependent upon most of the countries. So this is Western philosophy or Western thought process. They think that they are superior to anybody and everybody. When they got to know about our civilization, they knew that this is some land of Aryans. So they developed this theory at that point of time that it was because of Aryan invasion from the Europe to India. But historically, none of our sacred texts, none of our historical books talk about any sacred places beyond India, beyond Himalaya. Our ancestors were born here, died here, cremated here.
Last right.
This is always just to create some divide. First. Second, they are in habit of preaching us. Instead of tackling their own problems, they preach us that you should tackle your problems. This is the problem in your society. So that we should be always in defensive mode. But that cannot happen, that cannot go on for long. Any person who preaches India, Bharat, stating that you have religious problem, then I ask those people, you should first look into your own country, that you have the problem. Somebody says India is basically a rape capital. When you go through the statistics, there are many countries where this kind of offense is being committed, and that is far more in numbers than India. The conviction rate in India is different on different footings. Second, when you say that India is a people of illiterate, India is one of those countries where the agriculture produces, among the maximum. We export lots and lots of things. So instead of telling us what we are supposed to do, we can handle ourselves. We have handled ourselves. We have fought people who has stood up against us. We are going to fight. And we are going to again be a developed nation in their own definition.
I think
although
we
the
are,
definition is not
we are
given.
doing
So
much
they are in the
better
habit of
and-
preaching us, and that's I don't think we should be bothered about that. This
Okay.
is their opinion, and
Well
they are
said.
entitled to their opinion.
Right. Well said, Vikas. Thank you for the discussion.